Welcome everyone to Gemcast Live. Today we have Butler reading San's new story, Ashes of the Dark. Without further ado, here is the author to say a little bit about the story.
All right, thank you. So, first of all, I'm very happy that you're all here. I'm very excited to hear what you guys think of Ashes of the Dark, the first chapter. This book is a third volume of the Midriam Chronicles, but it can be read as a standalone because it's 20 years into the future. We're going to follow the story of Azrin, son of Fiowen, who follows his little sister into the depths of the underworld. And where he expects devils and monsters, he finds the scars of a war his parents swore they had ended. Beneath the mid-realm he calls his home lies the wreckage of the last war. Broken souls, buried truths, and the darkness from the abyss that wants to end everything. And what Ezra uncovers will unravel everything his parents fought to protect and force him to confront a truth written into his own blood. And he's haunted by his own fractured mind and bound to his companion Raylin, the one person who anchors him to the light. Ezra must choose between loyalty and truth to save the underworld and to save his little sister, even if it means becoming everything he was raised to resist. It's a story of love, ruin, legacy, damnation, and the fragile hope of redemption. And I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. Have fun.
All right, and here's Butler who's going to do the reading.
All right. Let me just get a drink of water really quick and we will get started. Some people say villains are made, but what if they are born? What if the rot is not learned, but inherited, threaded through bone and marrow long before you ever make a choice? What if becoming the villain of someone else's story is not a fall, but fate? Those thoughts gnawed at me as I stared down into the pit where my father had been kept for the last 20 years. Prison was too generous a word. These were wounds in the earth, open, festering holes carved into what had once been a garden. The ground sagged with decay, choked by dead roots and crumbling stone. A narrow path of cracked slate wound through it, ending at a solitary willow tree whose branches dropped as though mourning something it could never bury. Woven against it stood a dead oak tree, the same one my parents and grandparents had used to escape this place. But now the stone in the oak tree had turned dull, all its magic seemingly gone. An orchestra of whispers trembled the air, slithering through the garden like a breath between teeth. Pleading and weeping, the whispers came from the pits, from the depths below, calling my name with mouths that no longer existed. Come closer, Azrin. Remember us. Help us. I ignored them. My father lay curled in the corner of his pit, skeletal and shrunken, more shadow than man. Black hair streaked with gray clung to his skull in brittle strands. His body barely moved, save for the shallow rise and fall of his chest. I felt nothing. No pity, no love, not even anger. Just a hollow stillness, as though some door inside me had closed long ago and sealed itself shut. Perhaps it was protection, or perhaps I was simply broken, born broken, incapable of empathy in the way my mother had always said mattered most. Pathetic creature, the voice called in my mind, a voice that sounded like my own. Always judging, always patronizing me. I ignored it. A laugh clawed its way up my throat, sharp and inappropriate. I sucked in a breath and crushed it down. Laughing at the misery of others was wrong. My mother had taught me that. Learned sympathy. Was I really this rotten? Had my father struggled with these feelings as well? A sound cut through the whispers. My head snapped up just as the great doors of the fiend's castle groaned open. I slithered back into the shadow of the willow, pressing myself into its bark as if the tree might swallow me whole. The fiend emerged in long, furious strikes, his cloak snapping behind him like torn wings. His gaze locked onto the pit of my father below. "Wake up, Ash," he hissed. The name slithered through the air like a curse. A faint shuffle came from the pit, a scrape of skin against stone as my father dragged himself closer to the grate above him. "Have you thought about my proposition, boy?" the fiend asked. His voice was like the lingering echoes of death. "Leave me," my father rasped. Even hearing his voice did nothing to me. I had always known who he was. I had grown up hearing the stories of my mother and with her friends. Artemis, Ash, Spook, and Elora. Ash was my father, and ever since I was young, I wanted to see him. I had learned to soul wander as a child like my mother, slipping free of my body in the mid-realm, following the pull of places I did not yet understand. That was how I found him, how I kept finding him. Somehow, I could still reach this realm, even after Artemis shattered the ley lines that connected the underworld with the mid-realm. Maybe it was because blood recognizes blood, breaking the barriers between realms. Ash's soul was trapped here. He made a deal with the fiend, and when he died in the last war, the underworld claimed what it was owed. "Your soul will unravel here," the fiend continued, pacing the edge of the pit. "This realm is dying, thanks to your precious allies." You're wrong," Ash croaked. "Artemis promised all souls would be reborn." "Reborn?" The fiend laughed. The sound was low, cold, and ancient. It raised the hair along my arms. "Can't you feel it?" he snarled. "The magic is thinning. At the cost of every spell rises. Memories are dissolving like ash in water. No more souls come to us. The cycle has ended, and we're fading." He leaned closer, teeth bared. "What do you think will be left of you when this realm finally collapses?" "Leave," Ash whispered again. "You won't remember your little elfling," the fiend pressed on. "No return to your loved ones. No reunion. Just oblivion. We need to leave." The word tore out of my father like rusted metal dragged across stone. For a heartbeat, the fiend's eyes flared wide, startled. Then his hands clenched. "Fine," he spat. "Rot then. I'll find help elsewhere." He turned and vanished back into the castle. I waited, counting my breaths. Only when the garden settled back into its whispering misery did I move. I knelt at the edge of the pit. For a moment, an image flickered through me, my mother standing by a grave, tears streaking her face as rain soaked into the earth. Even after finding happiness with Spook, a part of her had never stopped mourning the man she had loved first. "I can get you out," I whispered. Two emerald eyes, so much like mine, snapped up. His face drained of what little color it had left, fury blazing through the fear. "I said leave," he hissed. I was offering freedom. Why'd he look at me like I was the danger? "He's not worth it," the voice said. I heard you, you monster," he spat. "I don't want to make a deal. But get away from me." He retreated into the shadows, curling in on himself. A sudden flare of heat burned in my chest, as if someone lit a match behind my ribs. My lips pressed into a thin line, and I slammed my fist against the metal grate above him, the clang echoing through the pit. "I was trying to help you," I hissed, my voice shaking. Tears burned, but I refused them. I stood and turned away without waiting for another word. Monster. The voice repeating this word again and again in my head. It wasn't the first time someone had called me that. My eyes frightened people. When my emotions slipped their leash, the green bled away, swallowed by pitch black. Fear, anger, grief, happiness. It didn't matter which emotion. My mother always said monsters were created, not born, that I was perfect as I was, that I was enough. Still, it never dulled the sting when people recoiled. There was only one person outside my family who never had. Raylan. I wish she could see this place. Everyone called the underworld horrific, but it had its own beauty. A dark, mysterious place. I knew she would be intrigued. I lifted my gaze to the castle doors, heavy wood carved with black roses. Gargoyles leered down at me, tongues bared. Above them, Gothic towers spiraled into a blood-red sky, the moon staining everything it touched. Inside, the halls were silent. Shadowy creatures fled away at my approach, as if fearful. Except for her. The undead elven girl that often came to see me when I was in the garden now followed me in the hallway. She slipped from the shadows, hollow eyes bleeding darkness. Blood dripped from her mouth as she dragged herself forward on broken fingers. Shoo, I muttered, waving her away. She reached for me anyway. I sighed, rolled my eyes, and walked away. She slipped into the shadows behind me. Kill her! No! I said to myself, and moved on. I always wanted to see the inside of this grand castle, but never dared to venture further than the gardens, afraid the fiend might spot me and imprison my soul. Although, once I visited the red, gurgling river that wound around the castle. That was a mistake. Those reaching, burned, skeleton hands and the horrifying screaming. It haunted my nightmares for years. I shook my head, shaking the images from my mind, and let my gaze wander. The halls were vast, made from dark stone and towering pillars wrapped in carved serpents. Candlelight flickered, fighting the cold that seeped into my bones. The smell of sulfur burned my lungs, and blood lingered in the air. At the far end of the corridor, a soft glow illuminated the hallway. Whispers curled from the room beyond. I knew I shouldn't go closer, but something inside me couldn't suppress my cursed curiosity, something Hazel and I had in common. Is dying. The words slithered through the air, not like any other voice I'd ever heard. It was cold, dark, and ancient. I held my breath, my steps faltering as dread pooled deep in my chest. The voice couldn't be mortal. It didn't use the common tongue. It talked in the tongue of demons. I knew the language. I had studied it out of morbid curiosity, tracing sigils and phonetics in stolen tomes, never expecting to hear it spoken aloud. I crept closer, every movement measured, breath shallow. I pressed myself against the stone, dissolving into shadow the way Spook had taught me. When I reached the door, the air itself warned me. Pressure crashed over me like deep water, crushing and absolute. My throat tightened. My body screamed, "Run!" A primal urge linked to survival when approaching great danger. I swallowed and peered inside. The room beyond was vast and terrible in its beauty. Black stone ribs arched overhead, sweeping upward like the bones of some ancient god, cathedral high. Moonlight bled through towering windows, the red glow of the sky staining everything it touched. A hearth burned at the heart of the room. Shadows clustered thick where its warmth failed to reach. A seating area rested beside the hearth, dark furnishings atop a large ring. Along the walls, shelves sagged beneath old tomes. Magic hummed faintly in the air. The fiend stood before the fire. Behind him hovered another presence, a cloaked figure, veiled in black, its face hidden behind a mask of blackened metal, veined like roots. Twin horns rose unevenly from its helm. Hollow eyes burned within. Undead. Endless. It did not touch the ground. Long, tethered fabric drifted beneath it like severed shadows. My heart hammered in my chest.
My master is willing to help you, Lord Umbraeus.
The voice rasped like it had been dragged through death and back again. It echoed against the stone, vibrating through my bones. The fiend flinched, and so did I. The sound scraped along my nerves, setting them alight. I should leave. I knew I should leave. Stupid boy, the voice slithered in my mind. But the name lodged in my mind like a blade. Umbraeus. Was that the fiend's true name? I knew from history class that he had proclaimed the title, the Fiend, after defeating all other fiends in the underworld. He'll offer us the magic we need to prevent the realm from fading, the fiend asked, cautious now, turning to face the creature.
He will help halt the underworld's collapse,
The figure replied.
in exchange for your aid in his wishes.
What wishes? The fiend snapped. You speak of my people's extinction. I do not give myself into someone's service lightly, if that means abandoning my people.
I share only what my master has shared with me,
The creature said smoothly.
aid for aid. Do you accept it?
The fiend dragged a hand down his face, breathing hard.
You do not have much time.
The figure continued.
With each passing day, this realm thins. Souls unravel. None will survive.
Cold flooded my veins. Did that mean my father would truly vanish, like the fiend had said? That Artemis's promise of the souls being reborn was all a lie? Fine, the fiend growled at last. Fine. When he arrives, we'll discuss terms.
My master will be pleased, Lord Umbraeus.
The creature bowed, and the fiend flinched again, hearing his own name. Suddenly, light flared, harsh and white. I leaned forward instinctively to see what was happening. The fiend stood over a document now, parchment glowing faintly. His hand hovered above it. He began to write, then stopped. His head snapped up. Onyx eyes locked onto mine. Time seemed slow. I had stayed too long. Ice flooded my body. I turned, melting back into shadow, panic clawing up my spine. My heart thundered. I had to leave, now! I squeezed my eyes shut, reaching desperately for the tether to my body. Metal slammed around my throat. Air vanished. My eyes flew open to the masked face inches from mine. 2 pinpricks of red burned through me, stripping me bare. White-hot pain erupted as if my soul were being torn apart, thread by thread. I cried out in pain.
Unwanted shadow,
The creature whispered.
born of love after it cost everything. One who walks between light and ash, burned divinity.
Its voice echoed off the walls. I barely registered the words through the numbing pain.
You will perish.
You deserve it. My hands clawed uselessly at its grip. Drop him. The fiend's voice cracked like thunder. A blade of shadow pressed to the creature's throat. Slowly, one by one, metal fingers released me. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, vision swimming. Relief came and shattered.
It must end,
The creature said. No, the fiend called out. The world seemed to hold its breath. It raised his hand, a black void blooming in its palm, devouring all the light. Whatever it was, I knew it would erase me completely. I felt the pull then, the faint, desperate tug of my body calling me back. I clung to it, followed it. Light exploded behind my eyes. I jolted awake with a sharp gasp, my body shuddering as if I'd fallen from a great height. Breath tore in and out of my lungs. Hay scratched against my palms and back. I was home. My soul had snapped back into my body, leaving the echo of cold metal and tearing pain still ringing through me. I lay on the hay pallet tucked away in the barn, a place I always fled to when my twin siblings grew too loud, too much. Azrin, sweetheart? My mother's voice cut through the fog. She stood a few steps away, leaning heavily on her broom as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Ever since the twins were born 10 years ago, her body had never truly recovered. Her hips troubled her lower back aching so fiercely some days that she could barely sit, stand, or walk for long without pain. I'm fine, I muttered, sitting up and brushing hay from my clothes while I fought to slow my breathing. She lowered herself down beside me with a quiet grunt. Have you been soul-wandering again? She asked gently, her sharp eyes searching my face. I shrugged. It was a useless attempt to lie. She had always known me too well. A soft chuckle escaped her as she plucked a strand of hay from my raven-colored hair. You were always more gifted with magic than I ever was, she said. Then her tone softened. She slipped her fingers beneath my chin, lifting my face until I met her gaze. But please, she whispered, don't go somewhere I can't save you. I'll be careful, Mum, promised. The words tasted thin, but I meant them. I kissed her cheek and stood, helping her to her feet as well. She reached for the broom again. You want me to do that? I asked, nodding at the dirty floor. She shook her head firmly. No, I've got it. You go help your dad. I pressed my lips together, unconvinced, but I knew better than to argue. She was as stubborn as stone when she wanted to be, and I had no strength left for a debate. Fine, I said, stepping out into the sunlight. The moment I did, chaos nearly flattened me. Hey, watch out! I yelled as Hazel and Milo tore past me, laughing wildly, Jimmy the horse galloping after them with far more enthusiasm than sense. Sorry, Zuzu, they called out in unison. I rolled my eyes, failing to hide my smile. The twins were walking disasters, but I loved them nonetheless. Son, give me a hand with loading the wagon, will you? Spook's voice rang out from the yard. I groaned softly, but hoisted a hay bale over my shoulder. I can only help for a few minutes, Da, I said. I'm meeting Ray later. A few minutes is all I need, he replied. Thank you. Sweat glistened on his sunburned skin as he worked, auburn hair graying at the temples. Lines of age and hard-earned wisdom traced his face. The moment my mother emerged from the barn, pinning her brown hair into a bun, his whole expression changed, brightened. A familiar, roguish grin spread across his face, making him look years younger. Not even a kiss for your lovely husband, little fox? He teased. I sighed. Of course. My mother swatted him lightly with her broom. Not in front of the kids, Spook. Yeah, please don't, I added. Oh, come on, he laughed. You're an adult now, son. A little intimacy won't scar you. He leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to my mother's forehead. She smiled, her fingers tracing his face with quiet affection. I don't shy away from intimacy, I muttered. I just prefer not witnessing my parents's. They laughed together, warm and unbothered. I slipped away toward the house, still on edge, not from embarrassment, but from the memory of metal fingers and the words whispered in that grating voice. I tried to think of Raylin, pushing away the image of the dark entity from the underworld, but his words still lingered in my mind.
One who walks between light and ash.
What did that even mean? It means you're doomed, the voice said. End of chapter.
That was outstanding. That was so good. And those voices were just unbelievable. Like this is just awesome.
Thank you.
It was like Gollum's long lost cousin, like I said. Like it's like wow. And I hope we still have San because she said her internet is bad. She said she can't hear you anymore, so
Can you
hopefully
guys hear me? I tried
We
to
can hear
fix it.
you.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Oh,
I fixed it.
uh-oh.
Butler,
Hey,
you did an
San, see if you
amazing
could
job.
come back
Thank
on if you could
you.
hear us. Or maybe she
I
can't hear us.
can
Oh,
you
she
not
can
hear
hear
me?
us.
I
Can you
can
not hear her,
hear.
Aiden?
I can't hear her at all.
Oh,
Huh.
okay. Oh, you
Okay.
Odd.
can't. Oh,
Let me see. So if anybody wants to jump, oh, hey Butler, you want to ask questions, and I'll see if I could just get back on since you're there.
Um, I'm not terribly great with questions, but I can ask everyone else's questions.
Yeah, that's all I do anyway.
All
I'll even
right.
ask. I'll even say the first thing before I disappear, because and try to like hear San. What really caught my attention was the prose. The prose is absolutely outstanding.
It really
thank you.
is.
So atmospheric. Yeah, and so like I think it really it's such a good example of what happens. Like people like think that prose takes away from the story nowadays, and this is just such a good example of it doing completely the opposite. Like I feel as though like it helped pull you into the character, into the just the emotional feeling of the story. Tears burned, but I refused them. Like that was just outstanding. So like yeah, if you could start with that one, I'm gonna go see if I can get back in and hear you. And then Butler, just take over and ask people's questions.
All right, I can do that. So, the first question is from Hopeless. He was asking, what was your inspiration for the story?
My inspiration. I think it's a combination of multiple things. I like the question. Um, I think the inspiration for book 3 came halfway writing book 2, but the world itself, uh, that already existed before I wrote book 3. And the inspiration for the world and the characters mostly came from my own dreams and nightmares. Sounds a bit weird, but I had a lot of nightmares and I wrote them all down, and that gave me a lot of inspiration. And also, I play Dungeons and Dragons, so it gives a lot of inspiration. And I read a lot of other dark fantasy or epic fantasy books. I hope that answers your
Indeed.
question.
Indeed, dreams and nightmares really can be some great inspiration. Plus D&D. You have a lot of great
Yes,
inspiration, it sounds like.
absolutely.
All right, any other questions?
Let's see.
Here we go.
Oh, Aiden is back.
Yeah, but go ahead. As long as there are questions, go ahead. I might have some stuff at the end.
All right. Hopeless is typing something. What was the process for developing your characters?
Good question. I work as a psychologist, in my life as a clinical psychologist, and I give mostly family therapy. So when I create a character, I use the same template I use in my work. It's a sort of a how do I explain this in English? Um, I map out a personality based on the things that the character has been through, some character traits, the way they view the world, their emotions, their coping mechanisms, their hopes, their dreams, their belief systems. And I write that all out so that the character has, yeah, multiple layers. And I make the connection between the things that the character has been through and what that would do to a person and how they would develop after those things. So that's a little bit how I create my characters. I think all my characters also have a little bit of me, one of my personality traits in them, which makes it easier for me to write from their perspective. But if I compare all the characters in my book, then they all have their unique personality profile.
That's really, really cool. Like a psychological dossier almost.
Yes, yes. It's very
That's
useful,
really, really
the
cool.
information that I have. And yeah, it can be quite useful. And in the information you learn as a psychologist to use that on your own characters, but also the interaction between your characters. I know how people interact or how they can interact. It's sometimes a bit hard to write it. I find it hard to describe facial expressions, for example. But I do know that dialogue is not always verbally, but a lot of non-verbal communication as well.
I wanted to ask something too. Like, we have a lot of good questions, so this is going to be great. Um,
Mhm.
like, as a fellow person who writes, like, Shackle Destiny is also like D&D inspired, and I know that like sometimes, like nowadays, people want to really emphasize the gaming aspect, but like I felt when I was writing, I really wanted to not have that be apparent. I love the
Same.
influence. Yeah, I wanted to ask you how you went about taking that influence, but not having the gaming be so obvious that it'll distract from the quote unquote real book version of it.
I think I didn't want to read it. I didn't want my book to read like a game. I really wanted my book to read like you're going to step into a different world. So I think the inspiration I took was more the choices characters made to solve certain problems or things that they um, um, how do I explain this? Like in book one and two, it's a bunch of characters thrown together to solve a conflict, basically. Just like in D&D. There's a bunch of characters who are thrown together by whatever reason, fate, call it coincidence, and they have to solve a problem. And they're going to interact with each other and they're going to make certain choices. And I think that's a bit of the aspect I took from Dungeons and Dragons. So when I play Dungeons and Dragons, I get inspiration from the way we interact with each other and the solutions we create for the problems we face. And yeah, also a bit of nature. Like in one of the campaigns that I played, we came across very colorful mushrooms. In book two, you read about very colorful mushrooms in the forest. So I also take a little bit from the nature.
I think that's
That's a
great.
little
Like,
bit.
that's a really good answer. Butler, do you want to ask some of the questions?
Sure, I'll get back to those. Another question was, what was the process? Or no, we already talked about that. Have you always written this well, or was there something here that inspired you?
I don't think I've always written that well, to be honest. I think my writing has really improved through all the feedback I've gotten from, well, I've known Felice, for example, from the critique group. They gave a lot of good feedback. I also had two beta readers who gave a lot of good feedback on my stories. And I think my prose also improved because I started reading more books in the same genre I write. And it really helps to look at the way how other writers formulate descriptions of places or emotions. And I started to gather that as well. And I have like two documents full of descriptions And whenever I want to describe something in a certain scene and I am editing, like my first draft is terrible, but if I start to edit, I grab those documents and I start to look for the descriptions that I want to use and change them so they fit my scene. I
That's such
think
a
that really helped.
that's such a great way of, like, talking about how, like, an outlining behavior can help during editing. Because I feel as though, like, people that like I'm an outliner too, like, more often than not. I feel like in the beginning, you have an outline and then you write the story, but then how else can you use that skill? And I feel as though the
Yeah.
way you described it right now is a great way to, like, take that same skill and put it into editing.
Yes. Yes. I also believe that as a therapist, as a psychologist, I've also learned by looking at other psychologists. How do they do things? How do they say things? How do they deliver messages to their clients and patients? And that's exactly what I'm doing with writing as well. I look at other writers. How are they doing things? And how can I copy them or how can I do the same thing in my own way? How can I create my own style by learning from others? It's also a little bit how humans learn, I think, by seeing how others are doing.
I
This
think that's fascinating.
Mhm.
As a segue, how much do you plan and how much freedom do you give yourself to free write, especially in the first draft?
I don't plan a lot, to be honest. I have a general idea of where I want to go with the story, but my planning is more that I'm going through life and suddenly I'm like, that's an amazing scene. I have no idea if it's going to end up in my book, but it's an amazing scene. And I'm going to write it down, that scene, and somewhere on a note. And then I'll see if it happens in my book. And I have like always in every story, I have like the beginning, an idea of the beginning, an idea of what's going to happen in the middle, and an idea of the ending. And what's happening in between, I don't know. I'll let the characters lead me. So there's a lot of freedom, which sometimes makes it hard to edit developmental edits because if you go through back through your story, you realize you wrote certain things. You're like, I completely forgot about that. So it's not the perfect
Mhm.
way, but it's the way that I like to write. So I get surprised by my own story as well.
Butler, you were gonna say something?
Oh, no, I was just, humming, agreeing.
Okay. And you spoke about psychology a good deal, and I'm trying to like take Lucia's question and ask it in a way that it can be answered. Um, do you find the inspiration at your job in a way that it has led to, you know, it has found its way into the story itself, you know, in a way that is of course like appropriate and like creative.
What do you mean? I'm sorry, I do not
No,
understand your
because if you
question.
look at Lucia's question, she said, "Have you ever used a real client as inspiration? And if you have,
Oh,
did you ask for their permission?" And so
oh,
like I'm trying to say like I'm trying to take that question and make it like
right.
something that you can answer.
Okay. No, I have not used patience in my book, to be honest. But what I use is my general knowledge as a psychologist on human behavior and development, personality development, and interaction between yeah people. Group dynamics. That's the right word. The group dynamics. That's what I use.
It does appear it does come out in the way that you write too. Like it's the characters are very believable in the way they carry themselves.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions? If anybody else wants to ask them. But like, yeah, I also I did want to touch on the reading itself. Like Butler, like yeah, like people were saying in the comment section, like you really made it come to life, and the voices and the noises and everything. That was just outstanding.
It was amazing how you did the
Thank you.
voices. It really made the characters come alive.
Good, I'm glad I did good on the voices.
Okay. With that, thank you for everybody for coming. Thank you for a wonderful story, so well written and beautifully narrated. And that concludes today's Gemcast.
Well, thank you all.